She thought she found love in his arms. But what happens when the man she loves and the man who desires her most are father and son? One secret, one forbidden attraction, and a choice that could destroy them all. Two lovers, one secret. The triangle that could tear everything apart. Stay tuned. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more heart-stopping stories. Naomi Okafor adjusted the hem of her simple navy blue dress as she slid into her seat behind the gleaming glass reception desk of Hale Enterprises. The skyscraper's lobby was a world of cold marble floors, mirrored walls, and towering chandeliers that sparkled like they were made of frozen stars. She often felt small here, just another face behind a counter, but she needed this job. It paid the bills, kept her younger siblings fed, and allowed her to dream of a better future, even if she had to smile at arrogant executives who barely remembered her name. To most of the powerful men and women who walked past, Naomi was invisible. But outside these walls she was not invisible to one person. Her phone buzzed in the desk drawer. She checked it quickly, careful to keep her movements discreet. "David, meet me tonight? I miss you." Naomi's lips curled into a smile before she caught herself. Her heart thumped in her chest, faster than it should. David Hale wasn't just anyone. He was the son of Richard Hale, the ruthless billionaire who owned the very building she worked in. To the world, David was a privileged playboy, rich and reckless. To her, he was different. Gentle, protective, someone who looked past her plain receptionist uniform and saw the woman beneath. But there was one problem. He didn't know she worked here. Naomi had kept that detail hidden, terrified of what would happen if he ever found out. What if he thought she was after his family's money? What if his father discovered their relationship? Her phone buzzed again. "David, please Naomi. Dinner at our spot. I'll pick you up." She typed back quickly. "Naomi, yes. 8 p.m. But don't be late this time." She tucked the phone away, suppressing her smile as footsteps echoed across the lobby. A sharp, commanding voice cut through the hum of conversation. "I want those reports on my desk by morning." Naomi froze. It was him. Richard Hale strode across the marble floor, his presence filling the room like a thunderstorm rolling in. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his tailored charcoal suit clinging to a body that spoke of discipline and power. His chiseled jaw was flecked with gray stubble, and his icy blue eyes swept the lobby with a gaze that made men straighten their ties and women lower their voices. Naomi's stomach knotted. She had seen him before, of course, always from a distance, usually surrounded by board members, bodyguards, or an entourage of lawyers. But up close, he was even more intimidating, the kind of man whose silence could command a room. She lowered her head as he approached the desk, pretending to shuffle through papers. She prayed he wouldn't notice her. But his steps slowed. "Miss?" His voice was low, deep, carrying the weight of authority. Naomi looked up, startled. Their eyes locked for a split second, and something flickered there, something she didn't expect. "Yes, sir?" she managed, her voice softer than she intended. Richard studied her for a beat longer than was necessary. "Conference room on the 27th floor. Make sure refreshments are arranged before 2 p.m. "Yes, sir," Naomi replied, her throat dry. He gave a curt nod, but as he turned away, Naomi felt it, the lingering heat of his gaze, as if he had noticed her not just as a receptionist, but as a woman. Her pulse quickened and she shook her head quickly. "Don't be foolish, Naomi. He's your boss. David's father." Still, she couldn't deny it. For the briefest moment, Richard Hale had looked at her in a way that made her knees weak. The hours dragged until evening, but Naomi's anticipation kept her afloat. When her shift finally ended, she hurried outside, where the cool city air kissed her skin. A black sports car pulled up to the curb, sleek and expensive. The window rolled down and David's boyish grin appeared. "There's my girl," he said, his voice warm and playful. Naomi slipped into the passenger seat, her heart settling into familiar territory. With David she felt safe. His tousled brown hair, soft green eyes, and easy laugh were a stark contrast to his father's stern presence. David was light where Richard was shadow, warmth where Richard was ice. They drove to a quiet restaurant tucked away from the busy city streets. Over candlelight, David reached across the table and took her hand. "You've been distant lately," he said softly, studying her face. "Is everything okay?" Naomi hesitated. She wanted to tell him. Wanted to confess the truth about where she worked, about how close she was to the man who haunted her thoughts earlier today. But the words stuck in her throat. "I've just been tired," she said instead, forcing a smile. "Work has been hectic." David squeezed her hand gently. "You know I'd take care of you if you let me. You don't have to work so hard." Naomi shook her head. I need to do this on my own. For me. For my family. David smiled faintly, though his eyes held a hint of frustration. Stubborn as ever. Their food arrived, and for a while, Naomi let herself forget the secret she was carrying. She laughed at his jokes, leaned into his warmth, and allowed herself to believe that their love was enough. But as David drove her home later that night, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. My father? He muttered. He didn't answer. Naomi's heart skipped. She turned her face to the window, hiding the storm brewing inside her. Richard Hale's gaze from earlier still lingered in her mind, a dangerous memory she couldn't shake. And in that moment, Naomi realized the truth. She wasn't just keeping one secret. She was carrying the weight of two, one that could break David's heart and another that could destroy them all. Naomi's mornings always began the same way, early, quiet, and hidden beneath the hum of the Hale Enterprises lobby. She would smooth her uniform, fix her smile, and remind herself to remain invisible. But ever since that brief exchange with Richard Hale, it had been harder to disappear into the background. His eyes lingered in her mind, sharp and assessing, as though they had seen through her polished mask. And now there was the company's annual charity gala, a night that would bring her two worlds dangerously close. Naomi, you'll be on guest coordination tonight, her supervisor said, handing her a clipboard. Don't let anyone important slip past you. And smile, donors like warm faces. Naomi nodded, her stomach tightening. She knew Richard Hale would be there. What she didn't expect was that David would be there too. The ballroom glittered with wealth. Golden chandeliers bathed the room in warm light, while crystal glasses chimed beneath the sound of laughter. Men in tuxedos and women in jeweled gowns floated through the room like royalty. Naomi stood at the entrance, checking names, her simple black dress marking her as staff. Then she saw him. Richard Hale entered with the commanding air of a king stepping into his court. His tuxedo fit perfectly, his silver cufflinks catching the light as he shook hands with dignitaries and investors. His smile was polite but never warm, his posture one of absolute control. He looked like a man untouched by weakness. Naomi tried not to stare, but her eyes betrayed her. She remembered the way his gaze had held hers days ago. Dangerous. Impossible. Naomi? The voice behind her sent her heart racing for an entirely different reason. She turned, and there he was. David, in a navy tuxedo, his unruly hair smoothed back, his green eyes sparkling as they landed on her. What are you doing here? He whispered, surprise etched across his face. Naomi's chest tightened. This was the moment she had dreaded. She hesitated, then forced a steady voice. I work here. At the front desk. Tonight they asked me to help with guests. David blinked as though piecing it together. His lips parted, but before he could respond, another voice cut in. David. Naomi's head snapped up. Richard Hale had crossed the room, his presence like a shadow falling over them. His sharp eyes flickered between his son and Naomi, recognition sparking. You two know each other? Richard asked, his tone calm but laced with something deeper. David straightened, his hand brushing Naomi's arm as if to claim her. Yes, this is Naomi. She's with me. Naomi's breath caught. It was the first time David had said it so openly, so boldly. Heat rose in her cheeks. But what unsettled her more was the way Richard's gaze lingered on her, not with surprise, but with something more dangerous. Interesting, Richard murmured, his eyes narrowing slightly before he looked at his son. You have particular taste. David stiffened. Don't start, Dad. Richard's lips curved into a faint smile, sharp as glass. I'm not starting anything. Just observing. He shifted his gaze back to Naomi, holding it a moment longer than necessary before walking away. Naomi exhaled shakily, her heart hammering. That look, it wasn't just curiosity. It was recognition, attraction, maybe even temptation. She felt it like a spark in the air, unwelcome yet undeniable. As the night unfolded, Naomi tried to focus on her work, but her mind remained in turmoil. David stayed close, protective and affectionate, introducing her quietly to a few friends, though she could see the tension in his jaw whenever his father was near. Later in the evening, as Naomi carried empty glasses toward the kitchen, she felt a presence beside her. Miss Okafor. She froze. Richard Hale had stepped into the quiet hallway, away from the glitter of the ballroom. The shadows softened his features, but his eyes still carried their piercing weight. You kept it from him, Richard said evenly. Naomi swallowed. I didn't mean to. I was afraid of what he'd think. Richard's expression was unreadable. And what do you think? About being with my son? Naomi's lips parted, but words failed her. The air between them thickened, charged with something she couldn't name. Richard stepped closer, his voice low. Be careful, Naomi. My son, he doesn't always know what he wants. But I do. Her breath caught, her pulse racing. He wasn't just warning her, he was drawing a line and at the same time blurring it. Before she could respond, footsteps echoed and David appeared, his eyes narrowing as he saw them. What's going on here? David demanded, his voice tight. Richard straightened, his expression smooth, unreadable. Nothing at all. Just a conversation. He glanced at Naomi one last time, his gaze heavy with unspoken meaning before walking away. David turned to her, suspicion flashing in his eyes. What did he say to you? Naomi shook her head quickly. Nothing. Just work-related. But David didn't look convinced. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration radiating from him. He always has to interfere. Naomi touched his arm gently. David, please, don't make a scene. He sighed, pulling her close. I don't care what he thinks. You're mine, Naomi. And I'm not letting him take anything else from me. Naomi's chest tightened. His words should have comforted her. Instead, they filled her with dread. Because she had seen it, the spark in Richard Hale's eyes. The kind of spark that could burn everything to the ground. Naomi had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Richard's face, his sharp eyes in the shadows, his voice laced with warning and temptation. She hated herself for replaying it, hated the way her chest tightened with something she refused to name. She belonged to David. She had chosen David. So why did Richard Hale's gaze haunt her like a forbidden touch? The following morning, the lobby bustled with movement. Naomi forced her brightest smile as she answered phones, directed visitors, and pretended nothing inside her had shifted. But her calm mask cracked when David appeared in the middle of the day, storming through the glass doors. Naomi, he said, his voice low but edged with anger. Her stomach dropped. He never came here. David? What are you? He held up a folded paper, her work schedule. Why didn't you tell me? All this time, you've been working here under his roof. Naomi's chest constricted. He must have spoken to someone in HR or caught a glimpse of her name on an internal list. I was going to tell you, she said quickly. You hid it, David cut in, his green eyes flashing. You knew I'd find out and you hid it. Why? Naomi's throat tightened. She wanted to explain, to make him see she had only been afraid of what he'd think. But before she could answer, another voice slid into the tension. Because she was protecting herself. Both Naomi and David turned. Richard Hale stood near the elevator, hands in his pockets, his presence swallowing the room. His eyes lingered on Naomi before flicking to his son. David's jaw clenched. Stay out of this, Dad. Richard's lips curved slightly, though his tone was cool. I'm already in it. You brought her into my world the moment you decided to keep her a secret. Naomi's pulse thundered. This was spiraling too fast. David, she said softly, reaching for his arm. Please, let's not do this here. But David pulled back, his voice rising. Do you see it, Naomi? Do you see how he looks at you? He wants to take everything from me, even you. The lobby quieted, staff pretending not to stare but listening all the same. Naomi felt heat rush to her cheeks. Enough, Richard said, his voice low but cutting. You're acting like a child. She's not your possession, David. David spun on him, fury in his eyes. And she's not yours. That night, Naomi sat in her small apartment, trembling. The fight had left her shaken, but what unsettled her most was Richard's words. He hadn't denied the accusation. He hadn't even tried. Her phone buzzed. She expected David. But the screen showed a different name. Richard Hale. Her breath caught. She stared at it for a long moment before answering. Sir? Her voice was hesitant. Naomi, Richard said, his tone softer than she had ever heard. I didn't mean for this to happen in public. But my son needed to hear the truth. Her pulse quickened. What truth? That I see you, Richard said simply. Not as a receptionist. Not as David's companion. As you. And I can't ignore it any longer. Naomi's chest constricted. You can't say things like that. I'm with your son. There was silence, heavy, weighted. Then his voice dropped lower. Do you love him enough to deny what you feel when you look at me? Her breath faltered. Because she had no answer. The following day, Naomi avoided both men as best she could. But her world tilted again when she stumbled upon a file left on the reception desk. Old newspaper clippings tucked between corporate reports. At first she thought it was a mistake. Then she saw the headlines. Hale heiress dies in tragic car accident. Richard Hale's secret affair ends in scandal. Her eyes widened as she skimmed the articles. Years ago, Richard had been involved with a woman outside his marriage. The relationship had ended in heartbreak, the woman dying in a car crash while rumors swirled about the child she might have been carrying. The scandal had nearly ruined him, until it was buried, erased from public memory. Naomi's hand trembled as she set the papers down. She understood now. Richard wasn't just drawn to her, she reminded him of that lost, forbidden love. And perhaps, in some way he wanted to rewrite history through her. Naomi? She turned sharply. David stood behind her, his expression raw, wounded. His eyes dropped to the clippings in her hands. You found it, he said bitterly. The secret my father never wanted the world to remember. Naomi's voice shook. David, I didn't mean. He stepped closer, his jaw tight. Now do you see? This is what he does. He destroys everything he touches. And he's going to try to take you from me because you remind him of her. Naomi's heart pounded. David, please. I don't want to come between you and your father. David's laugh was harsh, broken. You already have. That evening, Richard cornered her in the empty corridor outside the elevators. You know, he said quietly, his eyes searching hers. You've read about my past. Naomi swallowed hard. It's not my place. It is, he interrupted, his voice rougher than usual. Because I can't stop what I feel, Naomi. I tried. God help me, I tried. But when I look at you, I see more than a reminder. I see a chance I thought I lost forever. Her breath caught. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. Her heart warred with itself, torn between loyalty and temptation. Before she could respond, David appeared at the end of the hall. His eyes landed on them, and in that moment, the truth shattered everything. You've already chosen, David said, his voice breaking. Naomi stepped forward, shaking her head. No, David, please. But he turned away, pain etched into his face. And Naomi knew the secret was no longer hidden. It had been unleashed, and nothing could stop the destruction it would bring. Naomi stood at her apartment window, staring out at the restless city below. Horns blared, neon signs flickered, laughter rose from the streets, but inside her world was falling apart. She had seen David's pain raw and unguarded, when he caught her with Richard. She had heard Richard's voice, low and steady, telling her he saw her in a way no one else did. Her heart was being torn in two. And no matter what she decided, someone would bleed. A knock rattled her door. Naomi opened it to find David standing there, his tuxedo wrinkled, his hair a mess, his green eyes clouded with sleepless fury. Naomi, he said, his voice breaking. Tell me it isn't true. Tell me you don't feel anything for him. Naomi's breath shook. David, I love you. I never wanted this, any of this. But you didn't deny it, he said, his grip tightening on the doorframe. When I saw the way he looked at you, when I saw the way you froze, I knew. He wants you, Naomi. He'll take you from me like he takes everything else. Tears stung her eyes. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. No, David. He can't take what already belongs to you. David blinked, stunned. Naomi. Before she could say more, another knock came, sharper, heavier. She opened the door again, and Richard Hale filled the doorway, his presence like a storm pressing in. His tie hung loose, his eyes dark with need. Naomi, Richard said, his voice low, steady, dangerous. I won't play games anymore. You belong with me. You know it. David's fury ignited. You don't get to walk in here and... David, Richard cut in sharply, you've never known what you wanted. I do. And I want her. His gaze fixed on Naomi, piercing. I won't let fear make me lose her like I lost before. Naomi's heart pounded. Both men stood before her, the boy who gave her light and the man who tempted her with shadows. This was it. Her chest tightened, her voice barely above a whisper. David. Richard's expression hardened. David froze, searching her face. Naomi stepped closer to David, tears streaming down her cheeks. I love you. It's always been you. From the first moment it was you. And no matter what happens, it will always be you. Relief crashed across David's face. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as though letting go would kill him. His shoulders shook against her cheek, his breath ragged. Behind them, Richard stood in silence. For the first time, his mask cracked, not with anger but with quiet devastation. His blue eyes darkened, his jaw tight as he swallowed the blow. You've made your choice, he said quietly, his voice like steel wrapped in grief. But mark my words, you'll regret walking away from what could have been. Naomi clung to David tighter, her tears soaking his shirt. Richard turned and walked out, his footsteps echoing like thunder fading into the night. When the door shut, David kissed her hair, his voice hoarse. I thought I'd lost you. You never will, Naomi whispered, though deep inside, the shadow of Richard's gaze lingered. She had chosen love. She had chosen David. But she knew the scars of this secret would follow them forever.